the $200 giant slayer, December 5, 1944, Lüneburg, Germany. The ground shook before they saw it. To the men of the 415th Infantry Regiment, the rhythmic thud-clank-thud was the sound of approaching death. Out of the winter mist emerged a Panzer I Tiger, 57 tons of hardened Krupp steel, armed with a fearsome 88mm cannon that could vaporize an Allied tank from 2 kilometers away. Facing it was Sergeant George Burns. He did not have a tank. He did not have an airstrike. He had a steel tube that looked like a stovepipe, a handful of rockets that looked like oversized fireworks, and a terrifying lack of cover. According to every rule of engagement in the German Wehrmacht, Burns was already dead. The Tiger was an apex predator, an engineering masterpiece designed to be invulnerable to infantry. But Burns didn't play by German rules. He waited, heart hammering against his ribs, until the Leviathan was close and comfortably suicidally close. Then he fired, a streak of fire, a crack of thunder, and the invincible German monster shuddered. The cheap rocket had slammed into the Tiger's side, melting through the armor and turning the crew compartment into an inferno. That morning, Burns didn't just destroy a tank. He dismantled a philosophy. The weapon he used, the M1 Bazooka, cost about $19 to manufacture. The tank he destroyed cost the Third Reich over 250,000 Reichsmarks and thousands of man-hours. In that smoking wreck lay the story of how American mass-produced pragmatism defeated German engineering perfectionism. The Teutonic Knight, engineering as religion. To understand the shock of the bazooka, one must first understand the Tiger. German engineering during World War II was not just a manufacturing process, it was a cultural statement. The Tiger tank was built like a Swiss watch, the size of a house. It featured interleaved road wheels, the shock-to-loft work that distributed weight perfectly, a semi-automatic transmission that could be driven with a steering wheel, and optics so precise a gunner could hit a moving target a mile away. It was a weapon designed by craftsmen who believed that superior quality was the ultimate trump card. The German philosophy was one of the knight. Send a singular perfect warrior onto the field to slay 10 lesser foes. But perfection had a price: complexity. The Tiger's interleaved wheels were a maintenance nightmare. If an inner wheel broke, you had to remove massive outer wheels just to reach it. In the mud and snow of the Eastern Front, this jammed the tracks solid. Scarcity. Because they were so complex, Germany could only build 1,347 Tigers during the entire war. Hubris. The tank was designed with the assumption that the enemy would have to fight it on its own terms. Tank against tank, gun against armor. They never planned for a lone infantryman with a tube. The Detroit answer. The democratization of firepower. While German engineers were obsessing over transmission gear ratios, American engineers were raiding scrap piles. The story of the bazooka is a testament to the chaotic genius of American industrialism. In 1942, U.S. Army Captain Leslie Skinner and Lieutenant Edward Uhl were trying to figure out how to launch a shaped charge grenade. The grenade, the M10, was effective, but too heavy to throw. Uhl's solution wasn't a complex hydraulic launch system. It was a steel tube. I was walking by this scrap pile, and there was a tube that happened to be the same size as the grenade. Put the tube on a soldier's shoulder with a rocket inside and away it goes. Lt. Edward Uhl. It was crude. It was dangerous. The early rockets sometimes blew up in the tube. It had a battery powered by a wooden stock that looked like a toy. Soldiers nicknamed it the bazooka after a comical musical instrument used by radio comedian Bob Burns, but it worked. And more importantly, it was cheap. This was the American philosophy. The democratization of firepower. Instead of building one perfect weapon for a specialist, America built millions of good enough weapons for everyone. The US didn't need a tank that could survive a duel with a Tiger. They just needed to give every infantry squad the ability to kill one. The physics of David and Goliath. The clash between the Tiger and the bazooka was also a clash of physics. Kinetic energy versus chemical energy. The Tiger's 88mm gun relied on kinetic energy, blasting a heavy metal slug at supersonic speeds to smash through armor. This required a massive gun, a heavy breech to contain the explosion, and a huge vehicle to carry it. The bazooka relied on chemical energy. Its warhead used a shaped charge, high explosive anti-tank or heat. When the rocket hit the target, the explosive collapsed a copper cone inside the warhead, creating a hypervelocity jet of molten metal moving at 25,000 feet per second. This jet didn't smash the armor, it washed through it like a high-pressure hose through mud. The result? A soldier didn't need a long barrel or heavy recoil mechanism. The rocket did all the work. A 13-pound tube could punch a hole through 3 to 4 inches of steel, enough to penetrate the side or rear of a Tiger. The tactical revolution, ending the tank terror. Before the bazooka and its British cousin, the PIAT infantry, were helpless against tanks. When a tank appeared, infantry ran. This created tank terror, a psychological paralysis that the Germans exploited with their blitzkrieg tactics. The bazooka reversed this dynamic overnight. Suddenly, the dense hedgerows of Normandy and the urban ruins of Aachen weren't safe havens for German armor. They were kill zones. A German tank commander could no longer focus solely on enemy tanks. He had to scan every bush, every window, every ditch. The invincible tiger was suddenly vulnerable to a boy from Kansas hiding in a cellar. The ambush. American tactics shifted. Infantry allowed tanks to bypass them, then popped up to fire into the thinner rear armor, the tiger's soft underbelly. The psychological toll. German crews began welding spare track links, concrete, and even bed springs to their tanks in a desperate attempt to stop the shaped charges. The hunters had become the hunted. Why the cheap tube won the war? The bazooka wasn't a perfect weapon. It had a short-range effective at approximately 100 yards, a blinding backblast that gave away the shooter's position, and it often failed to penetrate the tiger's thick frontal armor. But in the grand calculus of war, the bazooka was the superior solution because of logistics. Germany bet on the unit's a single, superior machine. America bet on the system, the overwhelming volume of adequate machines. By 1945, the US had produced nearly 500,000 bazookas and over 15 million rockets. They were everywhere. For the cost of one Tiger tank, the US could equip thousands of infantry squads with the means to destroy it. German engineering was a marvel of the mechanical age, focused on making the best possible machine. American engineering was a marvel of the industrial age, focused on making the most effective possible army. The legacy. In the end, the smoking ruin of the Tiger tank tells us everything about why the Allies won. The Germans sought victory through the perfection of the few. The Americans achieved it through the empowerment of the many. The Tiger is now a museum piece, a rare artifact of a failed philosophy. The concept of the bazooka, however the man-portable, shoulder-fired rocket, is still used by every army on Earth today. The stovepipe didn't just kill the tiger, it killed the idea that armor alone could grant invincibility. What American industrialism means for you today. The victory of the bazooka is a classic example of minimum viable product MVP. Thinking, beating, gold plating. Don't over-engineer in your own projects. Are you trying to build a tiger perfect, expensive, slow to launch when you should be building a bazooka effective, cheap, scalable? Empowered the edge. The US won by giving power to the lowest ranking soldiers. How can you distribute tools or authority to the people on the front lines of your team?